In January 1943, Second Lieutenant John George was a relatively unknown figure in the Pacific theater of World War II. At 27 years old, he was an Illinois state rifle champion with 0 confirmed kills, armed not with the standard issue M1 Garand like the rest of his battalion, but with a personally purchased Winchester Model 70. It was a bolt-action hunting rifle, outfitted with a Lyman Alaskan scope, and treated with mockery by his peers. They called it his mail-order sweetheart. His commanding officer viewed it as more of a toy than a battlefield tool. George had paid for the rifle out of his National Guard wages, ordering it while stationed at Camp Forest, Tennessee. It arrived after he had already shipped out to Guadalcanal, forcing him to wait 6 weeks for it to catch up via military mail. When it finally arrived, it became clear this was no ordinary hunting rifle. It was a precision instrument, meticulously customized by a competitive marksman. By the time George's battalion relieved the Marines on Guadalcanal in late December 1942, the island's battlefront had changed. While the Marines had secured Henderson Field, the Japanese still held positions around Mount Austin and in the thick coconut groves near Point Cruz. George's battalion launched a 16-day assault on Mount Austin, suffering heavy casualties to take the western slope. Despite the intensity of the fighting, George's rifle remained unfired in combat. That changed in mid-January 1943 when a rash of sniper attacks decimated George's regiment. Japanese marksmen hiding in banyan trees and armed with scoped rifles had killed 14 American soldiers in just 72 hours. Desperate, the battalion commander turned to George and asked whether his sporting rifle could be put to military use. George, a state champion marksman, recited his shooting credentials and was given until morning to prove his capability. He spent the night preparing his rifle, cleaning it of shipping grease and loading military ball ammunition. At dawn on January 22nd, he entered a captured Japanese bunker overlooking the grove and began his mission. Over the course of just a few hours, George demonstrated that his mail-order rifle was no joke. He killed 2 Japanese snipers with precise, calculated shots at over 200 yards. By the end of the day, he had eliminated 5 enemy marksmen, more than any other soldier in the unit had during the previous week. George's effectiveness transformed him from an object of ridicule into a vital asset. But the Japanese adapted quickly, changing tactics and eventually retaliating with mortar strikes. One barrage destroyed George's initial position, forcing him to relocate and continue his mission under increasing danger. Over the next 2 days, he used stealth, patience, and marksmanship to eliminate a total of 11 snipers, completely clearing the Point Cruz groves of enemy threats. What followed was even more remarkable. Recognizing his skill, the battalion commander tasked George with forming a sniper section. He was given 14 Springfield sniper rifles left behind by Marines and assigned 40 expert marksmen. George trained them on trigger discipline, wind compensation, and concealment. He emphasized 2-man teams, 1 shooter, 1 spotter, to avoid over-reliance on any single soldier. From late January to early February in 1943, George and his newly trained sniper teams conducted operations across Guadalcanal. In 12 days, they confirmed 74 Japanese kills without a single friendly casualty. The Japanese were retreating, but not without resistance. During one such rearguard action, George was wounded in the shoulder by a rifleman near the Tanambogo River and evacuated to a field hospital. Despite his injuries, George's war was far from over. As he recovered, orders arrived from Pacific Command. The Army needed experienced officers for a classified mission in Burma. George volunteered immediately. By April 1943, George found himself in India preparing for a grueling jungle campaign as part of Merrill's Marauders, a long-range penetration unit modeled after the British Chindits. The mission was to move undetected through hundreds of miles of Burmese jungle to seize the critical Myitkyina airfield. The conditions were brutal. George modified his Winchester for weight reduction, switching to a lighter scope and synthetic stock. His focus was on maneuverability, as supply lines would be minimal and engagements unpredictable. Through the campaign, which lasted from February to May 1944, George only fired the Winchesters 7 times, each shot a calculated response to long-range threats. Most combat was at close range where bolt-action rifles were less effective. By the time the Marauders captured Myatkina, the toll was staggering. Disease had ravaged the unit more than combat. Still, George's precision kills saved countless lives, and his tactics demonstrated the enduring value of individual marksmanship even in the most hostile terrain. After the Burma campaign, George was rotated home. The Winchester, now a veteran of 2 campaigns, remained with him. George was promoted and assigned to Fort Benning, where he trained infantry officers in marksmanship and jungle warfare. Though his rifle saw no further combat, it remained a symbol of what precision, skill, and unorthodox thinking could achieve. In 1947, George left the Army as a lieutenant colonel. He pursued an academic career, attending Princeton and later Oxford. He became a respected expert in African politics and international relations. Though his peers knew he had served, few knew the extent of his combat achievements. That same year, he privately wrote a detailed account of his wartime experiences. Initially meant for personal use, the manuscript eventually became Shots Fired in Anger, a landmark book in military history circles. It offered a deeply analytical look at small unit tactics, weapon performance, and jungle warfare. The book remains in print today, a treasured reference for historians and enthusiasts. John George lived to see the evolution of military sniping into a specialized field. He saw the rise of the M14, M16, and advanced optics. He watched future wars unfold in Korea, Vietnam, and the Middle East, and knew the lessons of Guadalcanal and Burma had not been lost. He died in 2009 at the age of 90. His Winchester Model 70 now resides at the National Firearms Museum in Virginia. To most visitors, it appears to be an ordinary hunting rifle, but for those who know the story, it represents a pivotal moment in military history, a time when one soldier's skill and determination proved that precision shooting still had a place in modern war.